just like so not pro-Trump. They were what do you call it when someone's against somebody? Against Trump.
Anti-Trump.
Anti-Trump, thank you. Because he was against the wall, which was odd because all of these kids
Because he was for the wall.
oh, right, because he was for the wall. And these kids are like, Trump, he's so bad. And they just are misinformed about all of this. I mean, it's not
Right.
that, I mean, people should, I think the bottom line is, it's like in other shows that we talked about, people should, we have borders that are open for people that apply the right way to come in legally. It's a privilege, not a right, to be a citizen, and
Or a guest in someone else's country.
right,
A
right.
guest in a country that's
and
not
the
your...
argument is, just like rich people have, and all these people from Hollywood have walls around their homes, and you lock your doors. Well, if they want to have open borders and not have the doors locked, then then obviously they don't. Then that would they shouldn't be supporting not having the wall because it protects us. And so, I think it was yesterday or the day before yesterday, the Pentagon approved, I think it was $1 billion for defense. Basically, it wasn't even, we don't have all the stats in front of us, but basically, Trump was trying to get funding through Congress, and then that was
for his wall.
He shut down the government. So
right. And what was that? I'm thinking it was $5 million, or was it? How much was it that Congress said they would approve?
It was
the wall?
something
Do you
much
remember?
less than what he wanted.
Right.
And then, and of course, he shut down the government after they even threw him a bone. But then he had these other ways to get it through Congress. And then, of course, he enacted his right to the emergency, protocol to be able to get the funding. But now it looks like he's getting it a different way. He's getting it through the Pentagon, through defense. He's got his budget to build at least 57 miles of the wall. And that led us to look into, to have a little segment again on immigration, customs, and enforcement, and how we're affected by it here in Montgomery County, because we've got the processing center for the Southwest Texas area here in Conroe now. So we are doing, as attorneys, more immigration work and being exposed to that a little bit more. So what do you have? You found some statistics that were mind-boggling.
I did, about costs. I think that we can agree that there's been a total collapse of bipartisan effort to do something about immigration.
Yes.
And as a result of that, as what you just described to our listeners, it's just turned into a ridiculous fight.
Right. And that's not to say that we fight as attorneys to keep people that are here that didn't come in legally here. So I have many, many friends that are here that aren't legal,
Right.
which, and not just from Mexico, but from all different countries,
Right.
many, many countries. And we want to help them because they're our friends, and they
Right.
help us a lot.
Right.
But there's not an entitlement issue here, at least with the people that I know at
Right,
all.
right.
Whereas some people do have an entitlement issue, and those are the ones that aggravate me, like the gal up there in New York, what's their AOC, or wanting people to come in and have no borders.
Oh,
and,
right.
No, that's wrong. But we do help them, and so a lot of our practice now, well, not a lot of it, but a percentage of it, is to help people be indoctrinated and to be able to stay here and become citizens. So.
Well, the detention of non-dangerous immigrants is very expensive. We spend billions of dollars a year just detaining these immigrants in the United States, detaining these immigrants and feeding them, housing them, and assisting them with their charities. I mean, do you have any idea how much they spend?
Quite a bit.
Yes.
Because they are there at the border. But they do it the right way, really, in the sense that if they are going to welcome them in, then they're footing the bill and trying to find them sponsors. And, in my opinion, if there is a right way around, trying to get around, if they've come in illegally, Catholic Charities is doing a very good job.
I completely agree with that. In the fiscal year 2018, the federal government spent approximately, but more than $3.076 billion on Department of Homeland Security custody operations and $8.43 million per day on immigrant detention. So
that was 1 year?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And so that's 1 year. And we've had this fight about the wall for, how long has that gone on? 2 years or longer? And Trump, they spent $3.076 billion or 8.43 million per day on immigrant detention.
Which
And
I mean, that's not monopoly money. That's
no,
real money that could be going to infrastructure and roads or education or all these things that the liberals want to throw out for free. They might actually have some funding for it if they a lot have a better budget for what they were doing. But here you go. That's just incredible.
that's $208 per day per detainee. I don't know if I already said that.
That's more than that's a nice hotel stay for anybody. $208 a day. That's a hundred. That's a nice hotel stay and a meal.
No kidding. I mean, we were talking before the show. I could live on that,
Uh-huh.
But these are interesting statistics. Okay, so basically, what Trump has done is he's ramped up the detainment of everyone, nonviolent criminals and people with no criminal record and people with criminal records.
Right. We're seeing it now because we're getting a lot of calls for people that are all of a sudden picked up by ICE, but they're not just all of a sudden picked up. They're picked up and maybe nonviolent or non-criminal, but eventually, just like our guest had come on before, Ms. Shiva Gill, she had told us that eventually they will get picked up. It's just a matter of time because they're not, I guess they're not really hiding in plain sight. They're actually living here. But if any traffic violation, for any reason, and what we're getting a lot now is angry spouses or girlfriends
Right.
that get mad and they say, hey, ICE, there's somebody here. You might want to come pick them up. And ICE will come get them.
They sure
and they
will.
take them over to the Montgomery County Processing Center here off Hillbig that they just built, which, again, I'm going to give them a great big shout out. That is an amazing facility. It's beautiful. It's new. It's clean. It's fresh. And it's huge. But on the other hand, it's also a detention center. It's I guess a limited security or actually it looks like a high security detention center where people that get picked up stay, and that's where we're going a lot now.
And so we're going to talk some more about that, but I just want to give you a rundown. You're talking about per year. In 2010, we spent for ICE operations 1.771 billion. In 2011, we spent 1.799 billion. In 2012, we spent $2 billion. In 2013, $1.994 billion. In 2014, $2.255 billion. This is billion.
So all around $2 billion, more or less.
Last year, we spent $3.76 billion.
Oh my gosh, it doubled.
It doubled.
And you know why that is? And we were discussing this earlier. It's because at first, people that were coming over the border were believing that they were going to be turned back or be arrested. And then suddenly, because it was like I guess I'm just going to blame it on the liberals, because in a large part it really is. They saw that Trump's hands were tied. And so, and I believe that they organized a lot of these marches from Honduras and from Central America up.
Right.
That they saw they could come over in droves. And so we've had to ramp up all the security to keep all kinds of people out. But that's why. At first it had gone down because people believed that the law was going to be upheld. And then when they saw, oh, look, they don't know what they're doing, we can just come on over. They were coming over in caravans, and they still are.
That's so true.
This is nothing new.
Well, it was a little bit different because I think Obama, it was there, but he wasn't. Yeah, no, you're right. I remember reading several things about how he did enforce
same.
that, and the cages and all that stuff that the little kids were put in. But it's frustrating because we are spending so much money to deal with this immigration problem, and it's not being recognized. And you and I were talking about before the show, I mean, if we built a wall, then we wouldn't have to be spending all this money trying to...
Everyone knows the wall will work, and it looks like we're finally going to get it. But I will say this, some of my clients that do go back and forth, they're not here legally, but it'd be nice if it worked that well, that people didn't want to stay here. They just came here to work seasonally. They had a visa, they came over here legally, and they could come and go with the open border, but it's been abused now. And a lot of some of my clients come back and forth over the border and still have, but they have to use a coyote. And we had discussed what that money would be so much better spent if, instead of paying the coyotes and the drug runners that are pretty much guarding their territory, if that went to the United States as maybe something much lower, but a fee just for whatever it may be. But they're coming back and forth paying these phenomenally high amounts going back and forth, and it's about I
Right.
think that we discussed it's between 7 and 15,000, depending on
Mm-hmm.
how nice your coyote is that you come caravan. That some of my clients are telling me that they're getting basically what amounts to a group discount because what was $8,000 to $9,000 on the average to come back to the United States and make sure they got here safely back up into the Conroe, Houston area, not just this region,
Mm-hmm.
has now lower. It's now about 6,000. So they're
If
getting
they
this,
come over in these large
yeah,
groups.
because it's such a large group that they're getting basically a group discount, and they're still coming back and forth, and there doesn't really seem to be a lot of anxiety about, as long as ICE didn't pick you up and you're not incarcerated, that seems to be their biggest fear. Coming back and forth is not a big deal. But again, the people that I'm dealing with, they're not criminals. They're just workers, and
Mm-hmm.
they don't have family here. They're just
Mm-hmm.
guys that are coming in and they're working. And they're doing all the work that's keeping Conroe and the Houston area developing as
Well,
quickly as
but
it
what
is.
about the fact that we're going to take a break here in about 30 seconds? But what about the fact that all the money that they make, they send back to Mexico? They take it out of our
They
economy.
do, but on the same turn, they're spending money in our economy to rent and to pay for food and clothing.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not stealing or anything. They're just working, and yeah, they are sending it back, but they're not making that much that it's making that big of a difference on our economy.
All right, we are going to take a quick break. We're talking about ICE, and we'll be right back.
IRLoneStar.com. Start your own podcast, create your first YouTube channel, and be on TV. Contact Lone Star Community Radio online at IRLoneStar.com or call the station message line at 936-647-3776.
Lone Star Boxer Rescue is a nonprofit organization serving Montgomery County and surrounding areas, dedicated to the health and well-being of the boxer breed. Lone Star Boxer Rescue is run and managed 100% by volunteers since 1999. Our main objective is to rescue, rehabilitate, and rehome boxers that come to us from many sources, including local animal shelters, owner surrenders, and strays. For more information about Lone Star Boxer Rescue, visit our website at lsbr.org.
Welcome back to The Legal Connection with Toni and Cheryl. Toni and I are here today talking about ICE. We've been talking about immigration,
And we're not my ice
customs, and-
skating.
not her ice skating. This is immigration, customs, and enforcement. Okay, so Toni, so you were saying you've been to the detention center here. It's
Yes.
beautiful.
Mhm.
Tell us a little bit about a client or something, some sort of
Some
interaction that you have.
background,
What you do?
which I'm going to
there.
be dragging you into shortly because there is such a demand right now for people that are picked up in these facilities. And we had the ICE detention center at Export Plaza, which was near the airport for many, many years. And it's got like about, I think, maybe 400 beds. And, I'm going to be off a little bit since I've never actually worked for ICE, but I was talking to one of the officers that works there. But they closed that because they're by contract. They're like prisons. They're contract prisons for detainees. And so they built a new one over here, and many of our detainees ended up at the Dwayne Corley, listen to me. Sorry, Dwayne Corley, I didn't mean that. The Corley Detention Center has nothing to do with Dwayne Corley, who's a very good attorney here that offices around the courthouse. But I always think about him as maybe he's a relative of somebody that had started it, his
Right.
namesake. But anyway, the Corley Detention Centers where many of our detainees were housed if they were kept here and they had some other federal issue. And then they built the new Montgomery County Processing Center that's just behind if you drive down Hillbig, and the further you go down Hillbig, which is where the driver's license place is off First Street, you'll first hit the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office, and then you hit the Dwayne. Say it again. The Corley,
Corley
Detention
Detention
Center, not
Center.
the Dwayne Corley Detention. That's the Corley Detention Center. And then they built a new facility at the end of that block, and so it's 806 Hillbig. And I've had a lot of calls of people that were recently detained, and a lot of them don't speak English. And so I'll go down there, and I'll go down there with maybe a rosary book or something that's religious because they have it translated English and Spanish, and it helps them to learn English. But what really surprised me was many of my new clients have been here for years, 15 years, and they just have not acclimated to learn English. And they really don't. They kind of hit like, I know Spanish. I should know much better Spanish for the number of clients I've had that are Hispanic, but I don't. But I don't need that to survive. These are people that aren't here
Right.
legally, and to be able to survive, they should learn English, which is a requirement to become a citizen.
I know.
You need to know English, and you need to know a little bit of history. And so, so when you go down there, you have to get what's called an EOIR. If you're an attorney, an EOIR number, and that stands for some kind of immigration number, but it basically is a license to practice immigration law. And you can get on their website and be able to see where your clients are and what their status is and that kind of thing. So I got there. It's really easy if you're an attorney to get this. And then there's certain procedures and certain forms you have to fill out in order to go to what's called I forgot the name of the hearing, but it's basically so that they want to stay in the United States and they want to get a bond. So it's a hearing to get a bond so they can stay and then argue the reason while on bond that they should be able to stay here permanently. And we've gone over this on our previous shows, whether it's asylum or they've got family ties or the gazillion types of visas that you could have here. What are your reasons for staying here? And what's really interesting is you'll have these kids that are pretty much the DACA kids. And DACA actually is an acronym for something, but they're the dreamers. Okay?
Right.
Dreamers are people that came over here not on their own volition, but as children. And they were brought over by their parents. And but if they were born here, they'd be citizens. And I have a lot of people that within the same family, sisters and brothers are citizens, but their siblings are not because they came
Right.
over and they were a little bit older. So
Right.
they didn't win the lotto with being born here. But there's a big thing about anchor babies, people coming over and having the baby here so that they can have that tie and the child will be a citizen. And I've had several cases where there was some question about the midwife and them really being born here. Was it phony? I've had to go argue in Austin that the birth certificate is legitimate because the midwife that signed off on it was legitimate. There's a whole I don't want to say gambit, but there's an industry basically of midwives signing off on birth certificates, and they weren't really born in Texas.
Wow.
It's just a lot more prevalent than you think. And it's because to be a citizen or to be
Right.
in the United States
Such
is
a big deal.
an important privilege. But a lot of people surpass that privilege and they come over, and that's what we're talking about right now.
Right.
Is the people that come over that have been here for a while. Okay, so example.
Typical client.
I have one client right now who has been here for 14 years.
How old is the client?
He is about 30.
Okay, so he was 16.
Nothing. He came over here. I take that back. He must have been here longer. He was 14 when he came over.
Okay.
He went to school here.
High school.
High school. He for whatever reason he didn't learn English in the high school here. It was here in the Conroe area. Actually, I think it was Willis, but it was in the Conroe general area. And he didn't put a lot of effort forward to becoming a citizen. And he didn't marry, has no kids, which is actually good. Works really hard.
Well, why is that good? Why did you say that? Because I
Because-
would think it's good if you find someone who's a citizen, then that's a path to citizenship is marriage. Why is it good?
Well, I think you shouldn't marry because you want to become a citizen.
Well,
You should
I'm not saying that.
Yeah, but that's what a lot of people are doing.
Oh, absolutely.
They're not marrying for love. They're marrying to be a citizen, and the marriages fail. And then you've got these broken homes, which is not a lot of times, but many times you have the broken home because of that. And but let's just say that they didn't marry for whatever reason. They didn't marry. They didn't have kids, but they're good, hardworking people, and they've been in the United States for a long time, but they haven't actually acclimated. They've just kind of felt, they've been living the good life, I guess.
Right.
They're part of some of their families are citizens, some are not. And this is a person that's got a really bad argument to stay in the United States, even though they've been here for 15 years, because they haven't tried to become a citizen. They haven't learned the language. They haven't gone through those steps that although we didn't have to because we were born here, we I guess won the lotto that way. That things that you have to do if you are not so fortunate and you want to become a citizen. what people do when they wait in line and they take their number in line. They fill out the forms. They do what they have to do to become a citizen. That's what all people that have come over here illegally should do, because it gives them that much better of a chance of staying. Now, there was, back in 1986 when Reagan gave everybody the amnesty, a lot of people that had been here for a certain time, the people that met the requirements got amnesty. That was wonderful, and it was supposed to be the end all.
Right.
I'm going to give amnesty to the people of here. I'm going to cut them some slack, but don't do it again. It didn't really stop anything. People kept coming over. We had no wall. And so I have a lot of people that are citizens through amnesty that basically brought some of their relatives over, or however they came over, and they didn't get the chain migration. For whatever reason, some of these people that came over kind of dispersed into the woodwork. So my client that has no marital status, has no children, didn't learn, isn't in school, working really hard. He's got a difficult case because he's not running there's no asylum issue. It's Mexico. They've got beautiful coast-to-coast resorts. There's no argument for it to be here. Now, saying that, I have to go. I'm going to be representing him in a hearing, and it's like 26 pages of argument on why he should get a bond and be able to stay here. But it's not as easy of an argument if you can meet the other criteria. If he came over illegally. If he had come over legally, it'd be a much easier argument. But he didn't. And even maybe if he had parents here, but he does have parents here, but they're not legal. It's been enough times that's passed since Reagan gave everybody amnesty that it's not. So it's a little bit more difficult. He was actually dating a woman who got the Reagan amnesty, who doesn't speak any English, who is a hard worker, but she's a citizen now. But he's only 30 and she was 50, and it was crazy. I mean, that does not look like a dating situation, and it certainly is not going to look like a dating situation or a marriage situation to the immigration court judge. So people, if you're out there and you're not here legally and you speak English, or some people that don't, start going online, look at what it is going to take to be a citizen, read up on it, find out those ways to become a citizen, start working toward it, or you may get picked up and end up in ICE and detained for months at a time at this $208 a day or a night or whatever.
Taxpayer. How long was your client in ICE?
He has been in ICE now for about 2 months, and he hasn't done anything wrong.
Yeah.
He has
How did he get
record.
picked up? What happened?
His girlfriend.
The
daughter,
50-year-old?
Yeah, the 50-year-old's daughter, who's close to the guy's age, but a little bit younger, was just sick of him hanging around the house. She didn't like him. So the daughter called ICE and said, he's causing trouble here at the house. So they went to the house, and they made up a story that he was drunk and, belligerent. The problem was they arrested him for public intoxication, but he wasn't in public. So I went and I got that dismissed, and now he has no criminal record.
Well, good.
But he was picked up because it was just a family argument. This is a family he'd lived with for 3 years.
Wow.
But he really should have had his own place. That wouldn't have happened. He should have gone to school to learn English so he could acclimate. That was what I was going to say about my next client. One of the good ways to become a citizen if you didn't come here legally is to marry into it. And so you would think after 14 years, he'd have somebody other than a 50-year-old that he'd be dating as a good-looking guy. But he didn't. I don't know why. I guess he
Maybe
needed a
he
mommy.
liked her. Maybe he liked her.
I should not be passing judgment here. He probably liked her.
Because we
but
don't know.
It's hard for me to see this as normal to have a 30-year-old dating a 50-year-old. But stranger things have happened. So, okay, so here's client 2. Client 2 is a DACA. Well, let me go back to another DACA guy. I had another DACA client, wonderful guy, the sweetest guy you can ever imagine, working 3 jobs, went to school, was in community college.
Spoke English, obviously.
Spoke English, is a meek, humble, everything you'd want a person to be. The kind of he represented himself like one of the disciples. I mean, he was just everything you'd want in a son or a person, just a very kind person, always very giving, but he wasn't here legally. And he wasn't married. He was common law married, and they had a child. So he had everything going for him to stay. Okay.
Right.
But he got picked up for smoking pot in his car with his friends while in high school. And we got him a deferred, and then he messed up on the deferred by like 1 year into it. he smoked pot again. And that was before they were so much more lenient than they are now on it. This is when it was a severe punishment. And so he got in trouble. But Dick was just giving us the sign that we need to take a break. So
All
I want
right.
to pick up where we left off on that.
Okay. Toni and Cheryl, we are here today talking about ICE and immigration issues. We'll be right back after the break.
Finish our story about DACA.
Yeah.
Lone Star Community Radio is Montgomery County's radio station with talk, music, weather, and traffic for Montgomery County. Have a question or comment about one of our shows? Want to know how to reach a host? Just contact the station at irlonestar.com or call in and leave a message at 936-647-3776. Get involved with your community with Lone Star Community Radio.
What can the Better Living for Texans program do for you? You can learn how to increase your consumption of fruits and vegetables, choose foods that are relatively inexpensive and good to eat, make your food dollars last longer, prepare quick, nutritious meals, help your children learn how to eat healthier snacks, and much more. Our program is committed to helping people like you improve your health through providing research-based nutrition education in a friendly, cost-free, and relaxed environment. We are Texas A&M AgriLife Extension, helping Texans make their lives better.
Lone Star Community Radio is looking for those who are interested in hosting their own talk show with monthly and weekly slots available on Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1, and on irlonestar.com. Start your own podcast, create your first YouTube channel, and be on TV. Contact Lone Star Community Radio online at irlonestar.com or call the station message line at 936-647-3776 to take your first step into the radio world.
Welcome back to the Legal Connection with Toni and Cheryl. Toni and I are here today talking about ICE, and we're going to wrap up the ICE conversation, and then we're going to talk about the new Supreme Court Justice Brett Busby that was appointed by Governor Abbott. Okay, Toni, so you were in the middle of your story about this.
It's a tale of two cities.
DACA guy.
We have two different, the examples I'm going to give are two different DACA clients that I had, meaning they were dreamers. They were people that came over here at 1 or 2 years old that spoke very good English and Spanish, so they had like bicultural, very, very nice people. I mean, you would never, the kind of person that you would hope that your daughter would meet because they were just cute and humble and church-going, the whole bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
But two different scenarios completely. One dreamer is what they were called at when Obama came in. So they were very young at that time. That ended up holding down 3 jobs, working really hard. Had basically, I think he had gotten married at that time. Had a daughter, but he wasn't a citizen. He hadn't worked through the paperwork to be here legally, and he had gotten picked up for smoking pot, and then didn't finish his pretrial intervention properly, and so he had that on his record. And but he kind of was, kind of living what he called in he was operating in blindside, or when he was functioning, but he wasn't being picked up. And I forgot he was in. What do you call it when somebody's in plain sight?
Oh.
He was functioning in plain sight, but he wasn't here legally.
Right.
He just kind of got lackadaisical about it. And then, lo and behold, he was going through a speed zone going into where he lived over here in not New Caney, but
New Waverly?
No, not New Waverly, but one of the places off of 59 and off of 59, kind of close to New Caney. And he was going down the street at like 2 a.m. He got pulled over for going more than 20 miles an hour, going through this one speed trap. But it was 2 a.m, so obviously that shouldn't have been enforced. But the police officer was looking to give someone a ticket. Well, one thing led to another, and he was so afraid that he was going to ICE that he escaped the police car, and
Oh, no.
they charged him with escape, but it wasn't really escape. He just leaned over and he opened it with his hand while he had handcuffs on, and one thing led to another, and he had like 9 charges against him.
No.
And it was like, how am I going to keep this guy here? I love this guy to death. I mean, he was the sweetest guy. He was only like 24. And I was able to get all of his cases dismissed because the police
Wow.
officer that stopped him had had lied about his record. Anyway, it was a bad police officer, a nice guy, but he lied about how he got that job, and that's how he ended up in New Caney and not in the Houston police force or whatever. And so I was able to get, doing my work as an attorney, they were just dumb cases. He should never have been stopped to begin with, and I got him dismissed. And so he was able to stay, and now he's a citizen. So that worked
Great.
out well. Another client, though, he was married and had a child and was working towards citizenship, another dreamer. But his wife and him got at odds with each other, and he kept she was calling the police on him.
Oh.
And he got an assault charge, and we got that dismissed. And then we got another assault charge, we got that dismissed. And she was making it up. She was a snobby little girl from Memorial High School. Ultimately, though, his parents didn't want to help him get out anymore because he kept going back to this girl.
Right.
The girl called again. He pled on a deferred. They picked him up, took him to ICE very recently. I said, we're not letting you stay because of an assault. We don't care. They got married, but they got a divorce, and they were living together again. So they were like, they couldn't, keep away from each other. He had custody. It was really, really sad. He had custody. She was a drug addict. He ended up we couldn't get him a bond over here in ICE, and he ended up being deported. He called me when he got to the border. He's trying to get back so he can take care of his son because he had a reason to be here.
What happened to the son?
The son is now still with the drug addict girlfriend, but CBS may get involved because his parents weren't here legally. He's trying to get back over here, and his only way to get back, because he has a record now, was to marry a citizen. And so he was here since he was 1, and he's like 25 now. I take that back. He's like 30 now. He was here a long, long time. He has now got a fiance. He's going to get married by proxy. But his journey was really interesting. What they do is he went ahead and said, well, just go ahead and deport me. They take you over to the closest port of entry to, I guess it's not really a port, but it's the basic, it's the entry to Mexico, which is, what's their name? Laredo, New Laredo. New Laredo, oddly, is on the Mexican side, and we have Old Laredo, which is on the American side.
Okay.
So they take you to Laredo, they dump you off, they give you just enough money for a bus, and everybody gets bussed over to Monterey. That's the only bus ticket in town is Monterey. So he's under Monterey, which is like a little mini Houston, except for he said it's not as much crime as he's expected. He was expecting drug lords and what have you, but they don't pay anything. They pay like $10 a day. It's like third world country wages. He wanted to get a job at a resort. He couldn't get one. So he's getting ready to get married and come back. That's his ticket home, is to get married to someone he met here. So that's kind of how it happened. It wasn't as bad as he thought it was going to be, but it was still pretty bad.
All right. Wow. Well, that's interesting. So, this is a very costly thing. And I mean, I can't even imagine how much we spent on all of that, But we want to talk about Brett Busby, his recent appointment to the Supreme Court of Texas.
And you have a little story about Brett Busby because
he swore me in.
Yeah, so interesting.
Yeah.
And the way I know him is I've never practiced before him in any court, but I went to watch a number of 14th Court of Appeals oral arguments. Just, if you've got time, if you're down there, if I'm doing in between doing jail visits and cases, I should stop in if there's an argument going on. It's very fun to watch. It's to be very quiet, very polite. You'd be dressed appropriately. It's almost like going to church. It's very formal. But just go in and watch a First Court of Appeals or 14th Court of Appeals argument. So interesting. And I watched him. He was over several cases, either as the I don't want to say the head judge, and I'm using the wrong terminology, but there's 3 judges that listen to the arguments, and he was either one of the side ones or he was the
presiding
judge. Thank you. And but he always had the most fair questions. He was always such a humanitarian, and he treated everyone with such respect. Not the way a lot of the judges did, where they kind of talk down to you and they try to have a gotcha question. Just he was such a nice person that I was kind of frustrated that he didn't get reelected when we had the Democratic wave elections, because he was up for reelection and he was voted out because he was Republican. And Governor Abbott appointed him to the Texas Supreme Court, and I was thrilled. So I looked him up, and so we had a little bit of interest, more sort of a an attaboy thing about I want to give him a little bit of discussion about Brett Busby in the Supreme Court. Okay, so Brett Busby is a justice of the Texas Supreme Court, place 8. On February 21st, 2019, Governor Greg Abbott nominated Busby to replace Phil Johnson on the court. The Texas State Senate confirmed Busby on March 20th, just last week.
Yeah.
I was thrilled about that. I was afraid that he wouldn't make it through because he was Republican, but such a fair judge that and not really biased, whether he's not really liberal or not real liberal or conservative. The questions he had were so fair that I feel like he's going to probably go even further than that. And that, without going too much further on that, I wanted to bring up one other thing that I read about that I thought this was so interesting. Okay, so Brett Busby is now in our Texas Supreme Court, and that's the Civil Court of Appeals. But President Donald Trump will nominate Justice Jeff Brown to serve as a U.S. District Court judge for the Southern District of Texas. The White House announced just on Friday. Justice Brown has served on the Texas Supreme Court since 2013. He's another local judge that we had in our system that's now going to be a federal judge if he makes it past the nomination process. And another really good guy. Have you ever had any cases before Jeff Brown? No. Now, I guess he's going to be Justice Jeff Brown. Love this guy. These are such wonderful appointments and very fair justices that I'm hoping Brett Busby, that his path maybe go the same way as Jeff Brown. But before joining the Supreme Court, I'm talking about, this is about Jeff Brown. Before joining the Supreme Court, he served as a justice on the 14th Court of Appeals, just like Justice Busby. And before that, as a judge in the 55th District Court in Harris County. After graduating magna cum laude from University of Houston, Brown clerked for Justices Jack Tower and Greg Abbott for the Texas Supreme Court and practiced with Baker and Box. He earned his BA from the University of Texas at Austin. Okay, back to Busby. Busby is a former Republican Place 3 judge of the Texas 14th District Court of Appeals. Busby was defeated in the general election on November 6, 2018. Busby responded to Ballotopedia's unique candidate survey, and so we have a little bit more information on him. His statement is, "I've specialized in appeals for 20 years, and I am board certified in civil appellate law. I began my legal career as a law clerk for the U.S. Supreme Court," which I did not know that. Before taking the bench, I was a partner at Bracewell and Patterson. Listen to me, I'm giving my age away. Bracewell and Giuliani and super lawyers named me as one of the top 100 lawyers in Texas. His education is through, he was an undergraduate from Duke, and he got his JD from Columbia Law School. I know that he was a judge in the, I want to say which court he's in. Oh, I don't even have which court he's in right now. Anyway, just a really great guy, and I know that we're running out of time here to talk about Justice Brett Busby, but
it's
very fair
wonderful.
judge.
Good.
I'm so happy that he's on the Texas Supreme Court, and I was going to talk a little bit about what it takes to get on the Supreme Court, but I will. How much more time do we have, Dick? 2 minutes? Okay. I just want to say what it is, what the caseload is on the Texas Supreme Court. Right. This is different from the Texas Criminal Court of Appeals, where people will they'll get a petition for review if they've been found guilty of a felony and they are misdemeanor. But you'll end up in the highest court in Texas, and that's the Texas Court of Appeals. Yes. Texas Supreme Court is only civil cases. Okay. The Supreme Court's caseload can be broken down into three broad categories. One is determining whether to grant review of the final judgment of a court of appeals, and that is to grant or not grant a petition for review. All right. Two, the disposition of regular causes, and that is granted petitions for review, accepted petitions for writs of mandamus or habeas corpus, certified questions, accepted parental notification appeals, and direct appeals. And the third is the disposition of numerous motions related to petitions and regular causes of action.
Okay. Well, that's really interesting. So we were supposed to have this guest today, National Lemonade Day, but they are actually in Governor Abbott's, or they're in Austin.
They're in Austin
this
right
week.
now talking to Governor Abbott and a representative about Lemonade Day. And
right.
So we got pushed back until next week. Very, very important. I say important. Important is as I'm kind of giving it some street cred here. Lemonade Day is actually, as we saw before last week. It's an organization that was set up as a charitable organization by a Houston entrepreneur, and I believe his name was Althouse. What did we say it was last week, Dick? Oh, I can't remember his name again.
It doesn't matter.
Okay. All right. Anyway, he set it up, and it shows kids how to set up a business, how to get supplies, how to set up, have traffic.
Great.
To set up a business. And we were just talking about corporations, partnerships, limited partnerships, sole proprietorships.
That's so wonderful
It
because a
teaches
lot
your
of parents can't teach their kids that because they don't know it themselves.
I want to learn
Right.
from Lemonade Day.
Yeah.
Parents, kids, everybody.
Yeah, so
Learn with
listen
your
next
kids.
week, 12 to 1 p.m. They're going to be here live. And always remember,
To serve God by serving others.
all right, have a great week, guys.
Thanks for checking out this show on Lone Star Community Radio, Montgomery County's community radio station. This show is owned and produced by Lone Star Community Radio and recorded live from the LSCR studios in downtown Conroe, Texas. For more information about the show, to be a guest, or to sponsor, just contact the studio at 936-647-3776 to leave a message, or email us at lscrstudios@gmail.com.